I pushed the button and here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is Tuesday at 7 p.m. Germany time. And as we are spread over the globe today, again, we are very happy to have our special guest today, the godfather of customer intelligence, the data whisperer, and a very close friend of mine for ages when I could convince him, fortunately, to be a speaker on some of my shows. And I'm very grateful to have today with us Phil Winters from CI Agenda, which stands for Customer Interaction. And well, that unknown club of spooks which are somewhere around. But Phil, you better introduce yourself more properly, as I like to be coming from North Rhine-Westphalia, from Cologne, sometimes a bit humorous.
Okay. Well, hi, I'm Phil. And interestingly enough, Ralph, when you talk about the title of my company, CI Agenda, yes, I have a book and it has CIA, Customer Impact Agenda, in the title. But when we printed it in Germany, in German, the German publisher would not allow us to have a name that had CIA as the initials because they would thought it would be flagged by the government as subversive. So I have two topics. I've been doing this a long time, since the early 80s. One topic is everything around customer data. And that's why I'm called the data whisperer, because, data talks to me. Actually, it's sometimes a bloody lot of work, but you can get an awful lot out of it. And the second thing is a focus on the customer. Yeah, now we are all customer focused. But what I found when I worked with organizations is that they all have a problem. They have a view of the customer, but they have a real hard time taking the customer's perspective and thinking not about how are they going to sell, but how does a customer buy? And so customer journey, customer experience, an awful lot of that. I've been doing that for a very long time. I'm an independent consultant with years of experience in software as well as consulting. And yeah, hopefully today we're just going to talk about impressions and stories from the past and good stuff. So that's probably enough, Ralph.
And I'm looking forward especially to not only the past, because I learned from you that being a good data whisperer and listener and interpreter, you are a good man also in predicting. You are not looking through the exterior mirrors, the rear mirrors, right, but you look through the front screen.
Yeah. Not looking out the back, just looking out the front. Yep.
Yeah. Such as the future is in front of you and not in the back. So get the right mindset, get the right attitude, and adopt to real-time needs. Real-time needs would be my first step in the way how the technology is changing so fast. What is your impression on that we have a digital booster, to put it like Mr. Scholz from our Bundesregierung? We used the bazooka to make a step forward in digitalization. And one gets the impression there was some movement forward, but now it's coming to a stop, if I follow some guys on the German SAP user groups comments. What's your impression?
Well, first you have to look at my orientation to data. I use data to predict the future. So I'm talking about machine learning. I'm talking about data science. I don't like using that word artificial intelligence, AI, but I will if I need to, because it's a process of gathering data, transforming it, creating something new for a specific issue. And when we talk about digitalization, when we talk about data, I think there's three things that have happened in the last 4 or 5 years. Number one is, of course, the compute power has become just incredible. I mean, I remember when I was first starting, what's on my watch right here is more than the IBM mainframe I first used in '77. So, I mean, just the compute power is just amazing. What that means is even if you don't do it better, you can at least do it a hell of a lot faster. The second thing is the quantity of data. And we everybody talks about the data explosion. There's no question that there's more data. The question is what's happening to make it easier to get to the data? Because, I grew up in the time when the first concepts, I worked with Dayton Cod. Yes, I'm that old. Early concepts of data management, early concepts of data warehousing, et cetera, et cetera. And we're still there trying to get all the data together. And there is a lot more data. And I think in most cases, there's some easier ways to get to it. I'll say quite bluntly, SAP doesn't always give the easy ways to get to the data, but in a lot of other cases, there's really good ways to getting the data. And I think the third thing is the ways you have of processing it, let's call it programming, have changed significantly. In the old days, you spent 6 months to a year learning a programming language before you could do anything. And I mean, even the university professors today are talking about the fact that I have to teach for 2 to 3 semesters before we can get to the real meat of the thing. And what's changing there is, I think, a lot of the software vendors, the suppliers, are changing their approach. No code, low code, visual programming, lots of other different ways, are at least surfacing some things to make some of this, getting to the techniques a little easier. What I think is, I don't think there's any magic in AI. I'm sorry if anybody joins this in the CRM space thinking there's a magic AI bullet that we can all just buy and it solves all of our data problems in CRM. It still works. It's still a lot easier than it used to be. We can do it faster. I think there's some other approaches, but the whole fundamental thing, if you think about it, the concepts have been around since the early 60s, and we've just gotten a lot better at using them. So when an SAP user group says they're struggling with data transformation, then it's either because of their supplier who's supplying the software and the data, or possibly their management who's still kind of locked in a way of thinking that there is no other way. And I mean, I'm an old guy. Up until about 10 years ago, I thought there was no other way either. And man, have I learned. There's a lot of different ways to do this stuff today.
Cool. And you mentioned that you wouldn't prefer not to talk about artificial intelligence, but machine learning and all that stuff do take some time.
Yes.
And one of your observations was, funny enough, that suddenly one starts to automate a process and gets crap as a result because he forgot to talk to reality and to real time.
Yeah.
And at a sudden, something happened. What was the observation on here?
The interesting thing is, if you think of all of the buzzwords you want to, whether it's data mining, machine learning, or AI, what is AI? AI at the moment is a very focused application of something where they have so much data and to bring in, and so much experience at being able to model it that it can handle just about anything very, very quickly. So you can have a program that plays chess, and they call it AI. But don't ask that program to cook for you, because it has no clue, because it's a different context. So all of these things are the same. And what's sorry, it's true. I want my auto drive program to now go.
Not general AI.
Yeah, that's the thing. Specific, if you want to call something automated, very specific AI, that's fine. But general AI. But okay, let's get back to what everything has in common. It's a series of steps. You got to get the data, transform it. You have to build models on it. You have to somehow get it in a form that you can use it. That may be putting it in a form that it can be linked into your CRM so that it can pick data up and do some scoring. There's all sorts of things. But those steps used to take a very, very long time. There's one, I'm not going to name a name, but there's one famous very large European telecommunications organization that was proud if they could get one model, not create, they could create thousands of models, but if they could get one model in production a year. And then they got to the point where they hired one person to run one model. The problem is that this whole space, in any organization, I can come up with 10, 20, 30, 50, 70, 100 use cases for machine learning, analytics, focused AI. But if it takes one full-time person to just keep the damn thing going, there's something wrong. Well, that became clear at the beginning of COVID. If you think of it, retailers were using it to predict what people were going to buy. Google was using it to predict who was going to drive where and where there were going to be traffic jams. Banks were using it for credit risk because, and if every one of those people took 6 months to a year to get a model into production, all of those sudden, those models stopped working because it didn't reflect reality anymore. The underlying data was changing too quickly. And so what happened was the models didn't work. And they weren't they didn't have the ability to go retrain those models quickly. So it wasn't just the model drifted a bit, the model fell off the cliff. I mean, it just stopped. It's raining. No, it's not. It's snowing. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And the problem was that the old processes are taking too long. So there's modern technologies out there where this sort of thing can happen much more quickly. There's some vendors out there that hate it because they don't have that technology to offer, but there are some options out there. And so what I'm finding is that people all of a sudden are saying, COVID, this sort of rapid change of what happens today, that doesn't stop tomorrow with COVID. Next time it'll be something else. Next time it'll be political to an identity orientation in politics. Next time it'll be and we can't wait a year to get our models redone. So everyone is starting to rethink, how can we speed that up? What is there out there to make it faster? And then it goes back to your original question. Is there easier ways to get the data? Is there easier ways to use power? Is there easy way to temporarily scale up, maybe shift from a local to a cloud temporarily? Yeah. If we have to do that, and then pull the model back down so we can keep, all of these things are now possible that weren't possible, say, 10 years ago.
That's interesting. It makes me wonder, you mentioned data warehousing, which is a phrase I haven't heard used in a while. And I think that's a good thing. Is one of the big issues.
Many vendors that only have gather and collection offerings. And of course, it's in their best interest to still think that some sort of gathering is the right way to go it. And so now we have the concept of data lakes and all these other things, but it's still the same thing. Let's gather everything. I call it boil the ocean. Let's go out and boil the ocean before we start. Now, if you go back and look at what I do, and when I'm working on a model, and when I'm working on trying to solve a business case with analytics, and let's pick something in the CRM space. Let's pick someone who's trying to identify a customer who's potentially going to churn, and it's a business-to-business customer, so it's complicated. You've got to collect lots of possibly different data. Well, if you know the kind of problem you're going to focus on, and you've got experience, then you know what sort of data needs collecting. I'll give you a great example. If you're going to do certain types of fraud, banking fraud, you want to predict fraudsters before it happens. I was on a case recently where they had over 3,000 fields of information. And they started with the orientation. We have to clean all 3,000 fields and gather it all together before we can start. And some investigation discovered that we only need 13 pieces of information to be clean. Data quality, absolutely. But we need 13 of them to be clean. That's a lot of difference in 3,000. So I think the smart organizations are saying, what's our business case? backing out of that, what's best practice? There's a lot of common knowledge in the industry. It's a lot of best practice that says, okay, what's focus of data we need? Let's get that slice clean, solve that business problem, make the money we need to do, lower the risk we need to make, whatever. Then we can choose another business problem and then slice in the next group of them. So I think that's changed. Regrettably, database vendors hate that. Cloud hates it. And traditional management consultants hate it because it means smaller footprint and less mandates.
Yeah. How do you eat now?
I'm sorry.
One bite at a time.
You are harming our consulting business. Too bad.
I know. But if you think of it, though, wouldn't we all much rather work on fun projects of 20, 30, 50 days than one project of 200 or 300 days that we all know before we start isn't going to work?
Yeah. No, it's there's another topic that goes into it as well, right? It's the topic of trust and long-term relationships. I mean, at the end of the day, if I sell my client something that they don't need, sooner or later they learn that I'm after their wallet and not after their best. Yeah. Well, I'm after their best, which is their money, of course. But anyway, so
yes, exactly. Well, I've always been of the opinion, though, it's a lot more fun to have a client ask you to come back and help them on the next thing. That's a lot more fun.
Yeah. So it's also, well, not only more fun, it also gives more satisfaction, right?
It gives everybody more satisfaction, and that's what's interesting. That's what's interesting in what I do with the data and also with the customer orientation. You're never finished because behavior is always changing. The way people interact is always changing. Their need change, and so that's always changing. So although the basic steps of everything you have to do are always the same, that's that when it comes to a customer, that's always changing, and that's fun.
Yeah. How does data contribute to offering journeys to customers?
I think it's in two ways. First off, every journey, whether it's a consumer journey, an individual journey, or a business-to-business journey, has a series of steps. It's basically because of the way we think, the way we make decisions. The psychiatrists know that very, very well. Yeah. So there's a series of steps. But the things we go through, the ways we choose to get information in, that's our behavior. Some of us will use more social media. Some of us will use more online resources. Some of us will want personal contact. Understanding what a person wants early enough to be able to respond quickly to it is something where data, and of course that's where a lot of the news sources, the social media sources, the touch points, the data coming off of all the different things, where you can pull it all together, you can start getting a good feel for, hey, I've identified a series of behaviors of the way people want to interact with me. Let's make sure that that's ideal. And the interesting thing is, if I know one group, I can go identify similar people who are about to start through that journey. So that's one thing. Then there's the whole thing about how do they make a decision. Rolf's been trained this. We know this. Any decision is based on facts, social and emotional needs. And regrettably, the social and emotional are always 80% of any decision. So anything we can do to gather little pieces of insight of how people are feeling about certain topics, what they feel towards you, and that can come from data as well. A lot of times,
to confirm the social and emotional needs, I want a new iPhone right now.
Well, actually, but actually, that's very easy. Why? Is it because of the technology of iPhone, or because you love Apple with everything you have? That's emotional.
Well, it's new and shiny.
Exactly, that's emotional too. So it's fun that with these different things you can go through. So one of the reasons I got into customer journey was because I knew there was all this data there. Marshall, you and I have already talked about the fact that we don't have to collect all of it. So how do we start helping people focus in on what's most important? And then, if they'd come with a business topic and we can focus it in on the customer journey, and we could start breaking it down to the touch points that were important for that portion, then it became much easier to then say, okay, we need to take these data points, collect them in this way, do this sort of thing with them, because otherwise, boiling the ocean. I mean, I did a lot of data warehousing, and sometimes it was successful, but most people said, oh, we come back and ask me for an answer in 5 years when we have the data warehouse together.
So
5 years?
If you were lucky.
Oh, well,
That's
you
what
need
it
to
used
get
to
a lot
be.
of the data, right?
Yeah.
So,
I
but-
guess we should, companies like Oracle and anyone who runs a data center should be thankful for that, because
Yes.
that's probably what drove the huge expansion of the need for storage off site.
Yeah. Well, and that's
where
the
all our
other thing that's
electricity is
interesting.
going.
Yeah. That's the other thing is when you start talking about the way people do things. I'm old enough that we've gone through many swings. We went through a swing of everything was centralized, IBM mainframes. And then we went through a swing of everything was distributed on first, digital VAX, and then Unix machines, et cetera, and then it all got pulled back together on big Unix machines, and then it got all distributed back out to PCs. Now it's coming all back together, and now we have cloud in the mix, et cetera. And the point for me anymore is, you should be able to do any of those combinations. Nobody should be dictating it to you, because each one of those combinations, when do you do cloud, when do you do local, when do you hybrid between the two, when do you distribute out on the edge, when do you bring forward, those are all business decisions, and no software vendor or no consultant should be out of the box dictating which one you should need. You should be able to do that in a way that makes sense for your organization. I mean, CRM is a great example, isn't it? Why is CRM on the cloud so fantastic? Well, secretly, it's because it makes the development process of the software vendors a hell of a lot easier. They don't have to worry about all those versions. But
And
is that really the best?
The support process even more.
Yeah. Is that the best for the customer? Really? I don't know. Maybe in some cases it is. I would dare say we could come up between the four of us with cases where maybe that wasn't such a good idea.
Do you recall, if I may interrupt on that little piece, because you were in history, you were in the large data center, and you were on the aspect that it's coming back. Do you recall in the 80s the Larry Ellison network computer, the NC, where he has now up-to-date idea just 30, 40 years ago, and he thought that there he could, on a socialistic idea, could get everybody a computer from Africa to wherever in the jungle, he does the processing in his data centers.
Not only do I remember it, I was on stage with him.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I used to work at a very large software company. You can look up my background. You'll see. And occasionally, as spokesman of the company, I was asked to be on stage with Larry Ellison, particularly when he was over here in Europe. And it was always a unique experience. The man was faster with the English language than anyone I had ever been. And I'm originally from Oklahoma, so we're a little slow. And all I could do is he could, Ralph, I'll teach you an English expression. You've heard to be chainsawed. Well, it's not just to be chopped off at the knees. It is to be chainsawed at the knees. The man was so verbally fast. He could go, and I would just stand there and go, wow, Larry, that was brilliant. Thank you. Because yes, I remember that. But the thing is, I think with the cloud computing, it really is bringing us some alternatives. But I'll tell you where I like it. Okay, I use a lot of open source software now on my laptop to do what I want to do. because I got tired of whipping out my credit card. And there is no limits to that software except for the size of my machine. And every once in a while, I'll get to the point where my really powerful laptop just, if somebody gives me 100 million records, it'll work, but it's going to take a while. So I like the option of being able to flip the switch up to AWS or Azure. At the moment, for me, it's a little easier to use AWS, twiddle the knobs in Azure, but that's just a personal thing. Throw it up there, slam it for a half an hour, pay them $5.50, turn it off, have my results, and download it back down to my laptop and keep going.
Très chic.
Yeah.
I like
and
it.
that is a really nice option. Yeah. I don't know how you do that with the operational systems like CRM systems. When you've got these analytic packages, then it's, some of these analytic packages work everywhere. And that's really cool. So that's what I do a lot. I think the other thing we could pick up and talk about is, a lot of the CRM vendors are talking about having analytics in their packages. Do you want to go there?
Oh yeah,
of course.
I'll have some fun.
We follow your lead.
What is analytics? If you're trying to do some consolidated reports and trying to do some visualizations you couldn't do before, and you're kind of doing a little bit with data in the past, and you're trying to put some rule engines in place that say, if the following 5 things are true, if A and B and C, then set the flag to say, oh my God, call him because he wants to buy. That's all rule-based stuff. Then yes, then the companies are all trying to do that. Whether it's Salesforce or Sugar or whoever we're talking about, they're all trying to do things in that direction. And it's not AI, and usually it's not even machine learning. I think, though, for me, the big problem is they all make the assumption that every piece of data that you need is already in their CRM system. And that's like a data warehouse. That's a hell of an assumption. When I'm trying to figure out what to do, when I'm trying to support my team through a CRM to say what to do next, I need everything in the CRM, absolutely. But I also need everything that's going on Twitter. I need everything that's going on, on the website. I need, some of them do that a little bit, some of them do that more. But every time they talk about it, I can immediately think of 5 data sources that they don't include. So behind the scenes, there has to be a hell of a lot of work to make some of that work. Not that you can't do it, it's just, let's make sure we're reasonable about what we're expecting from their analytics offering. It could certainly help us take a step, but in most cases, I don't think it automatically takes us to the next level without one hell of a lot of work.
And some businesses, some vendors rather, it seems to them, if you ask them, well, what about your analytics capabilities? They'll say, oh yeah, we have some great dashboards.
Oh,
Yeah.
Don't get it, do you?
No. Well, and the part of the problem is the word analytics has been so abused over the hundreds and hundreds of years. I mean, what is the biggest analytics tool on the planet? Excel. And if you try really, really hard, you can do some things with Excel. But, I'm kind of working on a different level. So that's why I prefer to call it data science or machine learning or something like that rather than just analytics. It's just to force people to say, what do you mean by that? So we can have a little different conversation.
Or what about the term business intelligence while we're at it?
If I talked to the godfather of business intelligence out there, he'd give you all sorts of things. I think business intelligence serves a very important purpose for helping you visualize and put data in a form to do different things with. And whether that's Excel or Tableau or Click or I don't care, Spotfire, name your package, I don't care. The challenge comes with what happens behind the scenes. And once again, if you get too many data sources, you've got to start pulling in lots of other things. If you want to do any sort of creation of new columns of information, true machine learning, clustering, anything, then those packages fall down. So what I have a tendency to do anymore is help people put their, use their BI tool of choice as a front end, and then hook something behind it to help them speed up. You can use the BI tool to a certain point, and then you kind of die. But it's a great front end. So how do you back that up with something else to help give it some more oomph behind the scenes so you can still do it? It's kind of classic.
Wow.
So now, who is the godfather of BI? Just to close a knowledge gap for me.
Just a sec. He just called himself to me today, an announcement to me. Did I delete it already?
Oh.
I see you put a lot of stock in that title.
Yeah.
Oh no, I actually think.
So he was blasphemic.
No. He was no. He. I actually say he is one of. I'm blanking out. Give me a second. Let's just keep talking, and I'll come back to it.
Yeah, no problem.
Because I've known him for like 30 years. And I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah, we can talk. We can talk.
Yeah.
We are good at talking through a moment of reflection, such as if we see all these aspects of different touch points, and we see all these change of behavior, what has happened to the need after you established the observation with us and shared it that the planned processes and analytics and so set up models did not work out, and we have the need for a real-time journey orchestration.
We have to be careful with the word real time.
Okay.
Okay. Let me go back and explain something. People who do work with data create cool things. They create a report, or they may create a model, which is it's basically a mathematical model that says, give me these 2, 6, 8, 12 input points, and I'll rattle them through my formula and give you a yes, a no, a percentage, or something like that. So the problem is that the people that create those things don't understand that doesn't mean they can throw that thing into production. If you take something like that and try to move it in production, all of a sudden you have to hook it into your production data sources. You have to, all of the data manipulation they did to get the data in shape. Well, in the production systems, the data is not in shape. So they have to repeat all of that process. Then once they run the model and get it out, and it says 42, that might not, again, be in the right form. So there's the group that creates the models. And then there's the group of, call them operations, DevOps, ML ops. There's lots of names for people who productionize, and they kind of throw it over the wall. Ralph, what I think's changed is the fact that companies are starting to realize we've got to get rid of that bloody gap between the people who create and the people that push into production. And once we do that, we've got to pick up from production really quickly when a model goes off. So it's real time in the sense that it's not every second, but let's say we're collecting, we've got a credit scoring model in our CRM. The rep enters something in, hits the button, and it says, yes, no, we can give them credit. Classic example. Yep, that would be something external hooked into CRM. Okay, how fast can we notice that, hang on, the last 100 records worth of data that we gave in for the model to score are so significantly different than the model, that the data we use to train and create the model, that we need to flag automatically. Oh my God, this model seems to be drifting because the data we're pulling in is so different now than what we needed to do. Or even worse, the data is totally different and you need to set a flag. So the real time for me is the connection of the two, and the fact that we have to, from the operation side, be flagging very, very fast the fact that something has gone, either drifted or fallen off the cliff. And so in that sense, you're right, it's real time, but it's not real time in terms of 10,000 transactions a second or something like that. It
Okay.
depends on the business case, but usually it's that real time that's saying, in some reasonable amount of time, we need to be able to flag that what we've based all of our assumptions on has changed. And we need to go back and do that from the beginning. And I think that's most true in a lot of the things where a CRM system would be used. If you're working on a chemical plant, I'm a chemical engineer, so used to do all of this for a chemical plant, and you've got all of the numbers coming off the machines. There's not that, it's not like a pipe can get up and walk away. The pipe is already going to be there. But with customers, with individuals, with humans, that can change really, really, really quickly. And I think that's what's happening.
Talking about this long-term real-time aspect of, well, now I'm using aspect as well. Ralph, you are quite a teacher here. It's usually not my word. The long-term real-time portion of it. So why not thinking of self-adjusting models here?
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're talking about. The problem, though, is that when a model is created, it's created on a separate set of data, and then it's tuned, and then there's all of this stuff that's going on. So a model can't necessarily catch itself that it's gone too far off. You have to have another little thing along the side to do that. But you're absolutely right. Effectively what you're doing is, you can think of it as an infinity loop. So you've got the guys over here creating models. They've got to package it in a way that it can be used by the other side of the house. So then you have your operations people pick it up and using it. And what we're talking about is the fact that in the operations, they have to be able to automatically flag and say, hey, it's changed, so that this other one can go and redone again. It's something that's emerging as a concept. I dare say we'll see it in Gartner fairly soon, because they usually do stuff like that. But this thing that the two worlds are coming together, and Thomas, you're absolutely right. You need to be flagging it so that a model retrains itself. And that's exactly what you're trying to do.
Well, there's a second step to it. At one point in time, the model doesn't work anymore, right? So the retraining is one thing, but having a changeable model, or a model that adapts itself, that's the next step there, isn't it?
Yeah, but regrettably, that's usually where the human being, the expert, has to come back in place. They can do it very quickly, but usually that's where you need to think out of. That's where our brains, because we have connections and ways of looking at things that a machine can only have a set of rules. It might be 1 million rules, but it can only have that set of rules. And coming back and saying, hang on, this model's totally changed. Let's go back and do some additional data exploration. I talked about 13 columns. Maybe we discover that there's a 14th column now that is more important. So let's get that one in. That's something that a machine, a machine doesn't know what the word 40, the number 42 is. Is it an age? Is it a temperature? Is it the name of a category? Is it a hotel number? That's still the bit where humans come into play. But you're absolutely right. Either auto retrain, because the model can tweak itself back up. And if it can't, then you flag it to throw it back to the data scientist or the expert to say, hey, your data, this ain't working anymore.
But then for the retraining, we essentially have the same challenge, just that it's going a little faster than humans finding out that the accuracy is going down. The system might find that out indications a little earlier.
I think it has to do with the nature of the technology. I know one package that, because of the way they've gone around implementing it, they use a visual programming. That means there is no code. They can package things so that they can be thrown over the wall, automatically picked up, and pushed through the creation process again, because it's all visual pipelines. It's all workflows, and those workflows can be picked up, automatically passed back, automatically retrained, et cetera, et cetera. So there are emerging ways to do that. It's actually pretty cool. I think my challenge with CRM, though, is still the basic questions of, where do you hook that in for the maximum value? And because most of these CRM systems now are big, they've got lots of features, they've got lots of functionality. And how you hook in some of these advanced tools, machine learning and things, I think that has to do with where the pain point is. Yeah, within the organization. So it might be in support. So you might do something one way. It might be in early acquisition, which means you would focus it there. It might be in closing. We might put it there. It might be in delivery. So you might put it there. And so what I try to tell people is always try to prioritize what you're going to do with machine learning, data science, all of this stuff by first focusing on something that you really need for the business.
Do we lose track of the real pain points of our customers or the people we do work for? And are we over-engineering our tools and helping software?
It's a very good question. I mean, you guys are all experts in CRM. You know that, anytime you have a list of 280 features and functionality and everybody wants to go through the dog and pony show of checking off all 280, we all know at the end of the day, depending upon what their business case is, they're probably going to use 40 of them. So in the sense that we always have to have, always have to have bigger, better, bigger, better, bigger, better. Yeah. I think for me, a little bit of it depends on how well you focus surfacing the thing. Yeah. If you force someone to use 300 things when they only need 40, that's a bit of a pain. If you provide them lots and allow them to kind of choose the ones they need and then turn them on over time, that's better. And of course, the ultimate goal is it doesn't cost any more, whether you have 40 or 300, you just have them all and can turn them on as you want. But that is sort of, I was about to use a politically incorrect term. I won't online. That is.
Too bad.
Yeah, that's kind of the devil, I mean, people don't like that. I do know somebody that does that, not in the CRM space. I use
know somebody in the CRM space
who does that.
Such as at your convenience offers you more than 45 programs for just one price per person, and you pick what you like to use. Yeah. And you don't pay upgrades, but you simply, like you made your open source example, pitch on, pitch off, switch on, switch off. Yeah. And if you use less after you have ordered some more in the cafeteria, you are allowed to give some stuff back. Yeah.
I think that's the approach that everybody's going to have to go. I can tell you in my space where I'm the most expert, of course, in analytics. It used to be in the old days, it was buy everything. You want a new data source, buy it. You want to have a little more power, buy it. You want a new feature, buy it. You want a new capability, buy it. To the point where you could imagine the pricing table was the most complex Excel spreadsheet on the planet because it had thousands of variables that constantly had to be manipulated. Compare that to the modern vendors. There's one I really, really like. I will say the name, KNIME, K-N-I-M-E. And that one, of course, is open source and gives everything to you for free. Yeah. So you're looking now at 160 capabilities that you always had to pay for every single one before you could even decide whether you want it, or you're looking at an offering that says, yeah, it's there, it's free, download, no tricks, use it, tell us what you think, off you go. That brings a totally different perspective into organization. So if there's a CRM doing that as well, that should be really good.
And if it's open source,
it is not the guys with the blue cloud. Yeah. And it is that I have the observation of robbery, theft, and assault. If I go for some vendors, and I am getting very nervous if coming back to what do you really need? Where is the beef, to quote that old lady? What you need to make your work easier, better, faster. And yesterday, the chap we just mentioned several times told his audience that they will buy a new idea of marketing and they make it work for the sales folks. Such did some other people say before. Let the system work. Yeah,
I've been around long enough to remember the first studies of adoption where they said, oh my God, it's terrible adoption of CRM. 20 years ago was only 25%. And the new studies a couple of weeks ago said, oh my God, adoption is 25%. That means 75% of the people of all CRM feeders hate using it. There's got to be a new approach here.
But on the bright side, we're consistent.
Yeah.
An industry that is consistent. That's true. That's a good point, Marshall. It's kind of interesting to note. I've always thought of taking my concept of the customer journey and switching it to the user journey and say, what would I want? When you get sold a CRM, there's all this stuff for the company and the managers and the organization, et cetera, et cetera. But the very last person on the list is the one that's going to have to use it. And, there's a great cartoon that I have that has a person drowning in a lake. And it's got the name company on it. And above it, it says, help. And on the side is a guy with his arms crossed. And it says employee. And it says, what's in it for me? And that's kind of the CRM challenge. We got to, if it saves me 2 hours a day so I can get home to my family faster, I'll use it. If it helps me hit my targets faster, I'll use it. If it helps me do certain really tedious tasks that I know I have to do because, but if I could do it with 1 click instead of 30 clicks, then I'll use it because it's helping me. It's helping me personally. If all it is, oh God, somebody's dictated this huge process and it's going to take me a half an hour jumping over screens every time I want to do this stuff, no wonder people hate to use it. There's nothing in it for them. Something for the company, absolutely, but nothing in it for them. And as I said, we're all humans, social and emotional. We don't go based on facts. We go based on what's in it for me.
Yeah, it reminds me of a joke. There's a employee out in the parking lot, and the boss pulls up driving a hot new Ferrari. The employee says, wow, that's an amazing car. We must be doing great. The boss says, yeah. And if you continue to work hard, hit your quotas, do overtime, I'll be able to buy another one next year.
Something like that. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, it's fascinating, this data and talking to the customers. I mean, I have to tell everybody on the call a secret. My kids think that they think I'm nuts because they said, Daddy, you mean people pay you to tell them how we buy? Isn't that obvious?
Shh, shut up, kids. Daddy needs money.
For most big organizations, no, it's not obvious at all. How we sell is obvious. How we market is obvious. How we deliver. But as Ralph knows, those aren't the words we'd use when we go home. Hi, honey. I identified myself as a lead today. Nobody does that. Why the hell do we use these terms?
Who did he lead?
Yeah, exactly. Hi, honey. I identified myself as a lead. So there's got to be some better ways of doing this. It's interesting though. One of the things I know, Ralph and I are similar in that we both like to watch the way people change their behavior. It's fascinating to sit on the street corner and eat popcorn and watch the way people change the way they're doing things, how they're doing it differently. And of course, Corona brought a lot of that. And I've been asked by, gosh, a lot of people, is the pandemic means that consumer behavior is going to change forever? Well, I think it actually changed beforehand. This has just sped it up. But I think for me, the fascinating one is I think business to business decisions are changing. In the old days, you hired lots of salespeople, lots of juniors, lots of seniors. You slammed them on your CRM system. You had them making telephone calls. You had them going out. You had them logging their meetings. It was all about, do enough calls, do enough meetings, do enough demos, you will hit your target. Well, I think those days are gone, because I think what most business to business organizations discovered is, because they had to make decisions during the pandemic, as they walked through the process, they didn't have meetings. They didn't have people flying in to see them. They didn't. And so they were forced to go faster along the intranet digital, so whatever you want to call it. And they actually found it's more efficient. We can move a lot faster. There's a lot more online. There's a lot more ways for us to get to a particular part in the cycle before we have to talk to the salesperson. When we talk to the salesperson, instead of a general, can you tell us about the market and your products and all that, we've sorted all of that out, either ourselves or maybe with consultants, like in the CRM space. Maybe they hire one of you guys to come help them get there fast. Then they get to the last 7 questions, and that's when they call and say, look, these are the 7 questions we still have about you guys because we couldn't find it anywhere else. Okay, bang, 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 bang. That is not solution selling. Value selling, target account selling, Miller Heinemann, or anything else. And I think it's because the organizations themselves are forcing the shift. They realize it's far too much effort, far too much money, far too much time doing the traditional way. So I think the biggest post-pandemic change will be in certain industries where they change the way they go about making a decision. That doesn't mean we don't need salespeople anymore, but I think the training, the background, what they'll be needed for, and what we're going to require from our marketing departments and other groups who beef up our offering is going to be really, really strong. What that means is the CRMs are going to have to get much, much better at being much more inclusive across other departments.
Yeah.
And I know Salesforce buys everything, but that doesn't mean it yet all
Isn't a
works together.
CRM, sorry if I interrupt, Phil, isn't a CRM by definition inclusive? If it's only focusing on the sales area, I would call it Salesforce automation.
Yeah, you're right, but I still don't see a lot of organizations looking at it that way. They take something for the Salesforce, or they take something for tech support and operations, or they take something by, I see part of it is because of the hierarchical nature of the organizations themselves. Sales is responsible for sales, marketing is responsible for marketing, support and customer success are responsible for support. So just because of some of our traditional organizational structures, we have silos. So it's not that the software can't necessarily do it. Sometimes it's an organizational thing that's holding us back.
So now, how can an organization that is siloed like that ever do journeys right?
It's fascinating. I can tell you, I've done so many journeys at so many companies, well over 300 now. I can tell you within 10 minutes of starting the workshop whether they're going to be able to do it or not.
And what's the quota?
Body language of the person responsible for the department.
Yeah.
I'm afraid. Funny story. I don't think I've told you this one, Ralph. I was hired by one major company to come in and run a customer journey workshop. And the people that hired me were really, really smart. I mean, it was a marketing department, really not thinking about the edges of marketing, really thinking about it from the customer perspective. And I went in and I was in a room. On one side of the room, it turns out, I don't mean this to be sexist, this was just a reality, was a group of all women in a marketing department, savvy, smart. On the left were the senior sales guys. They were all male, all well over 50, all with big stomachs, and they all sat there going, "You're not going to teach us anything." And we were supposed to do a customer journey together. And I took my sponsor to the side and I asked her, why did you ask me? Because she said, because you're an old guy like them and maybe they'll listen to you.
Did they?
We got a little way down the path. We got a couple of them to the point where we could do it. And the trick there, of course, as with every initiative, don't try to boil the ocean. Don't try to get everybody to do it. If you've got one or two people, goes for CRM, goes for customer journeys, goes for anything. If you have one or two that can do it, help them be so damn successful compared to the standard way everybody else does it, that over time it becomes obvious that everybody else has to kind of come on the boat as well. So
what did the trick?
Yeah, that's what we did. We had two of them.
What did the trick? Well, must have been this meeting or one of the subsequent meetings.
It was well. First off, it was getting something well defined, helping identify the couple of people that really wanted to do it, and then saying, okay, fine, the rest of you don't have to do this, but these two want to do it, so we're going to help them. And then a series of things where we help them be successful. And one of the golden rules I learned doing this down in banking down in Italy was, make sure you have your KPIs set that everybody agrees are good KPIs, and then make damn sure that your test group is so damn successful that everybody else wants it. Okay, we're running out of time, but I got to tell this story because it's fun. I was with this bank, and they had 5,000 salespeople. Most of them did not think that this customer-oriented way was going to work, so they chose 50. And we worked with those 50. Those 50 were hitting their goals much quicker than the others. They came back and said, that's not fair because we know you chose the best 50. And so this next time we did it, we chose 50 at random, and they were also successful. And a couple of months later, I got called by the board and said, Phil, get on the plane because the trade union wants to talk to you, wants the board meeting now. And I went, oh my God. So I got on the plane and flew down. I was like, oh, I'm going to be shot. This is it. It's over. And we walked in and the trade union says, okay, you've proved to us this works. We demand you turn it on for the other 5,000 immediately because they're losing out on the benefit. And you should have seen the IT guy's face go totally white. That was the best board meeting I ever had. It was a blast. Anyway, that was fun.
That leaves me with the question, to what extent can a company create a customer journey? And to what extent is it just creating the road down which those journeys happen?
I think the journey is created in the individual's head or in the team's head. We can't modify that. We can help them understand that there are steps in the journey. We can help them define what those steps are so that they acknowledge that, yes. What we can do, though, is when we've identified what are their different behavior steps, what are the different touch points, we can figure out ways to start influencing those and influencing them in ways that our competitors aren't doing. So you're not creating the journey. Sometimes you're surfacing it for the first time and defining it so that even the customers say, yes, that's it. Then what you're doing is you're trying to react so quickly to different pieces of it and respond with such good offerings that you get ahead of the curve. And basically, you're just trying to make it easy for them, make it really easy for them to come to you all the way through. So does that answer it?
I think so. And just like you want to make it easy for the employee to provide the service, there's the employee journey as well.
Well, that was fun, and I have to apologize for everybody on the call. I have a hard cut in 1 minute. It's a family thing I have to do, and there's no way I can get out of it, nor do I want to get out of it. But That was fun. Let's do this again sometime.
Yeah, we need to do
Hell
that
yes.
again. And you are actually the first one who made us end on time.
Well, it's only because
true.
I've got my wife. I turned the camera, but she's just right there saying, you need to come now. So,
Well,
So
now
give her our regards. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
thanks a heap.
Goodbye, man.
okay, it was good. It was good
Bye.
seeing you all. Let's do this
See you-
again. That
see you
was
next
fun.
time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
So,
Take care, everybody, and stay healthy.
Goodbye.
bye.